In a world with entirely too many shows about cars, this is another pointless automotive podcast.
All right, friends and not friends, welcome back to another Pointless Automotive Podcast, APA podcast for short. And for those in the know, Chadwick and Frank with you again for another what can only be described as riveting episode of our
Oh, yes.
podcast. And first off, thanks for joining us. Second off, Frank, how you doing this evening?
Oh, I am absolutely swollen. No, I'm good.
My
Yeah,
God.
just today I'm working on I'm taking a bit of a different angle. This is a hopped tea. It is it's basically it's like a black tea with like hops in it. It's a little unusual. It's actually pretty darn tasty if I do say so myself. Have you downgraded? Are you no longer? Oh no. No, he is not, my friends. It is Miller Lite. He's living his worst life.
You're goddamn right it is, son. Damn it. But so this episode, my friend, how about you, Frank? Wait, I actually totally know about you.
You do. That's fair.
Almost too well. But we buy and sell a lot of cars.
It's not okay.
Yeah, are we good at it? Probably not. But we've had some successful transactions, I'm sure, in our histories of automobiles. So I kind of wanted to take an episode because we focused on some of the fun, bad things that come with the territory, if you will. But I wanted to focus on like just buying and selling stuff, man. And I want to start off with the buying aspect of it, of how you should go into this because it is a big deal. Like I know we seem like we kind of childishly play with these things like they're nothing more than Hot Wheels at the supermarket. But buying a car, like for most folks, a car is going to be your second most expensive purchase in your life besides your house, right? Or getting in a relationship.
Mail order.
But seriously, cars are complicated. You can run into a lot of issues if you don't do your homework. So we want to kind of go into that and just kind of check it out. But let's start off with buying. Frank, do you have like right off the rip, what's a good advice category to get into for buying automobiles? What would you put out there in the ether for one good tip? Just the tip.
No shaft. I'm gonna say
soak, if you will.
Yes. What's it called when like you have a sibling jump on the bed to like make sure there's movement in a godly fashion? I don't know. I'm not.
That's definitely that's a Southern thing for sure.
No, it's a Mormon thing. I just don't know. Oh. Yeah, it's a Provo situation. I'm just gonna my buying thing is gonna be this: have an escape plan. Like for most people, that's probably not top of mind, right?
Right.
Because they're probably buying the one car that they're going to have. But if this is a plaything, if this is a second car or a third car or an 11th car, do the mental math and have an escape plan. So and what I mean by that is if you are going to buy a second car relatively inexpensively or expensively, have in the back of your mind of, okay, if I buy it and something immediately breaks on it, or it turns out what I thought was minor is a major thing, or whatever, already have pre-described in your mind and in your head what your out is going to be. So when it comes to these cheap buckets that you and I tend to be buying, right? Yeah. Let's say it's this 924 behind me, or it is, which is a terrible example because it's been a thorn in my side. But for instance, let's say it's that 84 Celica Supra that I bought, right?
Sure.
Bought it for $6,500, under 100,000 miles, ran well, manual. I bought it unsmogged. Okay. Part of why I got a good deal on it. Okay. What happens if it doesn't pass smog? What's my out?
Yep.
What is it? Can I get my money back out? Do I feel fairly confident I can either get my money back out of it, or if I don't think I can, am I comfortable with the projected amount of money I'm going to lose here if things don't go the way I'm planning or expecting them to go?
Yep.
And so anytime I'm buying a second or 12th car or somewhere in between, that's a lot of the math I do. It's like, okay, This guy says it's on a planned non-op, and I think it is on a planned non-op. Well, what happens if it's not? Is the entire deal blown up? If the answer is no, then I'll go ahead and do it. And if there's a lot of questions like that, and the month and the numbers still then don't make sense because of those questions, and I don't have a proper out, or I'm wagering too much money for the number of unknowns, and I don't have an escape plan, then I don't go through with it. Is that the right way to buy stuff? Maybe. Does it mean I've ended up with too many cars? Certainly. But that's how I do it. Is that do you play that numbers game? Is that like general car guy math, or is that just me? I'm on an island here.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right there. You should have a plan. Like if you're going to rely on this thing to get you to, I don't know, work, or you have a family, or any of those other things that you need reliable transportation. Yeah, transportation for. You got to ask yourself: is this going to be a car I can jump right into? And most of the time, it's not the cars I buy. I do have to front load a lot of preventive maintenance in, just like you said. But my out is I have another car that's running, of course.
Sure.
In that case. But also, I think this one piggybacks off of what you said, Frank, and do your homework before you buy the car. Ask questions, ask quality questions. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, if you're on Marketplace or Craigslist and you get one of those ads that says, please don't ask a million questions, just come check it out. Do not entertain that car unless you're like really willing to roll the dice, because that's someone that doesn't want to get asked those hard to answer questions, right? They don't want to be asked, when was the last time this important, insert maintenance item was done, or why does it have this bullet hole in the window, or like, there's all these things. And like, trust me, if you want to buy a car of someone and you're anything like us, I love talking to people buying cars and selling cars. Like those are genuinely some of my favorite conversations. And I think that's basically how our friendship started, Frank, was along that vein. But honestly, avoid the most vein with an E. But you want to ask questions up front, because like I said, if they're not going to entertain questions or blow you off, you're better off, guys. You're better off avoiding that sale. But seriously, the questions I'm talking about right at the front end, ask about the maintenance history, ask about why they're selling it, just gather as much information. Because I don't know about you, but nothing's more disheartening than driving out, getting my hopes high, getting a bunch of money out of the bank. So you're putting a lot of time into this. You're usually like skipping out of work or skipping out of a family function to go out and look at this car, and it's not represented well.
Yeah, ignoring your kids, family, blowing off loved ones to go out and see something. And then it turns out it's like that that LS 400 that you went and looked at.
Garbage.
The kid had never driven the car. You're like, what are we doing here? I've never ridden in this thing. And it's
the GX I tested, and the guy didn't know how to put it in 4-low after he had ruined the low range gearbox and transfer case. But anyway, like it's like, but honestly, you ask those questions, front load, and save yourself the time. So think it over, guys. Ask those questions. Don't be afraid to ask. And if they pressure you for asking questions, fuck them. They can sell that car or not sell that car. It doesn't matter.
And the other end of that is maybe it's something hard to find or something special, or you get, every scenario is a little bit different.
Sure.
And so be as good as you can in reading the room. And by that, I mean, maybe you talk to someone and they're not so much unwilling to answer the question, they're unable to answer the questions, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you get there and it's like, dude, this is my grandpa's car. I don't know. Or I don't know about cars. I bought it a second, or my dad handed it down to me. There's a lot of scenarios where somebody might not, because there absolutely are, like, don't ask me questions, don't waste my time, no tire kickers.
Oh, dude,
I know what I have. And you're just like, those guys can go kick rocks. But there are going to be instances where somebody just doesn't have the wherewithal or the bandwidth or the knowledge, and no shame in that.
Yeah, no.
In about the specific thing that they're selling. If you're like, hey, has a timing belt water pump been done? And they're like, what's that? There's no shame in that,
right?
But just know, as you said, do your homework, know on that specific make, model, the things to be aware of, the common issues, the maintenance item that need to be done. Is there a timing belt water pump? When is the interval? Do the instrument clusters fail all the time? And like 80s BMWs and video stuff, and do you trust that the mileage is accurate? Some of that stuff, know what you're getting into. And that way, if you get to this person and they don't know, they're like, I don't know what a timing belt is. I has car. Okay. like you can do what you can to, if the person can't tell you, can the vehicle tell you?
Mm-hmm.
You know, is there a timing belt sticker? No. Okay. Are there service records? No. Okay. Are there other signs to show you that components have been replaced that are adjacent to those? Or, you know, is everything look factory and factory old versus factory new? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think my dad took this dealership. I don't know. And you look and it's like there's all these new hoses and hose clamps.
Yep.
And they're all OEM style hose clamps and they're all new. Like, okay, like that tracks. The tires are new. Okay. This car was looked after. But if the tires are 22 years old,
yeah,
and it's got just like the janky dollar store hose clamps, and cut to fit hoses and things like that, like, okay, that tells you something too.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to read that. So, or if you don't know how to read that, take someone with you that does.
That's it.
Ask a friend, phone a friend. Are you that friend?
You know, honestly, I am. I've definitely helped people. I'm a little handy around vehicles,
and a little handsy around vehicles.
Oh,
to be real,
completely all over that business.
grabby.
Inspect thoroughly would be my second point, and it's exactly what you're talking about here, man.
Yeah.
It's you know, don't just photos are great. Like, and Frank of all people will tell you photos are great because he takes great photos. But
Sell the
even,
dream, baby.
dude, the best photos, the most detailed photos, don't always show the true condition of a vehicle. It's real easy to look at a vehicle and it looks shiny, it looks well put together. You can polish a turd too. Let me just say, you can do a quick detail, make a car look pretty good, and then when you really get up there and inspect it, oh my God, the paint's actually going in a few spots. You know, obviously skip over the guys with the wet car photos where they're washing it in the wash bay. Skip those. Trust me, you don't want to do that. But, you know, check them out. Like, really look at the car. Even if the person talks a good game, like, oh, I drive this across the country tomorrow on 20-something-year-old tires. You have how many different leaks? The thing's running, idling poorly when you get there. It's already hot. It's, you know, there's all these issues. Guys, really do your research when you get there. Look at a car. And then for your test drive, insist on going on a road. Do not take it just around the parking lot because you're not going to notice anything at regular at those speeds. You want to go
freeway speeds.
Freeway speeds. You want a corner so you can hear any clunking, any kind of weird uneasiness in the chassis or in the handling components. You know, do these things and like go through the gears, like test every gear, especially if it's a manual. You guys got to really do this. And then, Frank, one of my favorite things, test all the goddamn accessories. Put your windows up and down, sunroof. If it's, you know, you want to roll the dice on that one on all the car.
Yeah.
The headlights
during the rain.
Electronics. These are the things that can come back and really bite you if you don't test them out at this opportunity. So,
and not just that, like, you are, when you're looking at a car, you are setting yourself up for negotiation. And so if you get there and you find that, oh, hey, the right rear door glass doesn't, you know, the motor buzzes, but the door glass doesn't move. And you step on the brake lights and the center mount brake light doesn't illuminate. And they're LEDs. It's not a bulb, right?
Yeah.
And you look at the date codes on the tires and they're old. And the car otherwise presents very well. And they're like, oh, my car's perfect. It's pristine. And you're like, well, it's a nice car. You're asking $7. It's not unreasonable, but I'm gonna have to spend $900 in tires. I got to fix this center mount lamp. If I have to pass an inspection at some point, it'll fail. I have to do this. And you know, I got to deal with this window. You know, I get it, to used car. It's not going to be perfect. That's fine. There's rock chips. There's a bullseye in the windshield. Whatever. Not worried about that. These are some stuff I got to fix. And then you can work back, and it gives you ammunition to
absolutely
negotiate. And so, yeah, to that point, test it all. You get one shot to do this.
You do.
Don't be the guy that like calls 2 days later and be like, well, you know what? The second key fob you gave me doesn't work. And I don't know if it's just a battery. I don't even have to put a battery in this. Can you give me a battery, or what's a battery? And just go, like, don't be that guy. Figure it out there. You get what you only get one shot. Do not miss this chance to blow. This opportunity comes once in a lifetime.
It's
Mom
true,
spaghetti.
Yeah.
And so don't Don't screw it up. Basically, just you get one opportunity, as you said, freeway speeds, make some turns, actually test the brakes. You don't have to go full ABS stop or anything, but like, see if the wheel wants to pull you in one direction or not when you're on the brakes, or if there's pulsing or whatever. Like, just build yourself a dossier to negotiate against, and know what you're getting. Maybe you still want it at that price, but know what you're going to have to do the moment you get that thing home.
Exactly. Yep.
One other thing with that too, do not be afraid to walk away. 100%. I don't care if you drove 4 hours to get out to see this thing. If you get out there and there's like one or two red flags, like, okay, fine. But when they start stacking up you start getting an uneasy feeling. I've bought in cars where I was like, oh, I don't know about this. And then I get it and I'm like, okay, it actually wasn't that bad. But I've also had the inverse of that happen, right? And I've put myself in a rush and bought a car where I was rushed or I was out of my element, and I just said, all right, fine, whatever, I'll grab it. It seems good. I'll deal with it later, and it bites me in the ass.
Yep.
And so learn from our mistakes, and yeah. So do not hesitate to walk. To walk. Don't feel like, oh, I'm committed. I came out this far. I went to the bank. I burned 4 hours of my time. Much better to burn 4 hours of your time and not screw yourself than to burn 4 hours of your time and screw yourself.
Yeah, it's like my 300ZX twin turbo went out there. We had a $500 price discrepancy, and I had already done the math of the things I needed to do. And I was like, "Look, man, like, I think I'm coming up more than my comfort zone. Can you hit me?" He's like, "No," and I had taken an hour and a half Uber ride there, so hour and a half Uber ride back home without the car. And dude calls me that night. I changed my mind. I'll go to your price. Hour and a half Uber ride the next day. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's put your foot down for that price. There is a price point when you get. I think I've gotten pretty good at this whole mental math of what I need to actually, because I know how much parts cost, I know how much an issue is going to cost to address, and I know how much my labor is worth, which is apparently
$0.
Yeah. Exactly $0. But I know the time I'm going to have to put into it. But with that too, man, there's the admin side of buying cars, and this is the paperwork side. This is the smog side. This is if you're in a state like California where you have to worship the gods of smog, which is like a horrible I gotta say it's some kind of demon we all have to deal with on these older cars, right? Things you got to look for, guys, on your behalf. Get a copy of that title. Ask them if they have a photo of the title. If they don't have the title, that doesn't rule me out because I'm a crazy guy that goes after cars like that. And I harshly negotiate when someone doesn't have a title because I know it's shady. I fucking already know it's shady. We've already established a baseline shadiness. But get a picture of that title, ensure it's clean, make sure it's in that person's name, and make sure it's an authentic title. You also want to do like a Carfax or other vehicle check. If you can run an Invitas, God bless you. Do everything you can to find out as much about that vehicle as possible. Because if someone's had a vehicle for 10 years and the title's clean when it was issued, they could have got it. They could have salvaged the car since then. And when you go to get that title in your name, guess what you get to find out? The title's changed.
Yeah, we have to you have to pass a safety inspection and a VIN verification.
Oh, really? Why? Why, DMV person?
Oh yeah, your shit's broken. Yeah. That is actually a thing. And people don't oh, here it is. Here's a title that was issued, 7 years ago.
And there are, dude, and I got to tell you the truth. Like, I run into a lot of sketchy title scenarios. Like, I am not the owner. This is the owner's name. I bought it from them. This is the previous owner. I just have bill of sale records. Yeah, because we never could get it to pass smog. That kind of stuff. Exercise extreme caution, guys, because this is probably a car.
Extreme negotiation.
Yeah, both, but still. You can also negotiate the shit out of it and be stuck with a brick you cannot register in a smog state. So you got to really know what you're getting into. And if you're uncomfortable about something like that, and I don't blame you, back away. Because even I've come across shady stuff that just doesn't make sense. Right.
Or just be really good at forming a Montana LLC,
Right. But like anything with the title and stuff, and if you can't register a car, it's effectively useless. Be really careful. That's the admin side of it, as I like to call it. So, that's because you can look at a car and see if it's good, but sometimes you can't see that stuff. So you have to exercise a lot of caution.
You know how many times I've looked at a car and I'm like, so I see your tags are like 4 years out. What's the deal there? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Like, what do you mean you don't know? Like, I don't. Oh, or I've had multiple times people be like, yeah, it's got like $900 in back due fees, but like, they just waive that for the new owner. You just go to you just tell them at the DMV. It's like, bro, no, they don't. Like, yeah, they do. It's like, I'm telling you,
They absolutely
do
don't.
not do that.
Yeah.
Like, you can't fight City Hall. They will take your ass. Like,
yeah,
there's $1,000. You're asking $2,000 for a car with $1,000 back due on it. Like, I'll give you $900 for it. And they're like, oh no, that's not how this works. I'm like, all right. Like, I've walked away from cars before because it's just like, and they're gonna, and I promise you, they pulled the wool over on somebody and they completely boned somebody. And somebody was like, oh sure, that makes sense. And then they go to the DMV and what the person, to be fair though, I've bought in cars where I knew there were back fees on it, and then I go to the DMV and I say, oh, I didn't know, to see if they'll waive it. No, they never
do.
I've gotten close once where they like looked at they talked to the manager or the supervisor, and they're like, well, like, and I'm to be fair, I'm a brutally bad liar. And so like I had one where it was I think it was a car donation car where I knew I had a bunch of back due on it, but I also know the car was like that entire time it was off the road in a drive. I think it was a 924.
Okay.
I knew it was off the road in a driveway, and like the donor had filled out some of the paperwork, was like one showing that like an affidavit of non-use, basically saying, yeah, the lady was incapable of driving. It's just been off the road for a year in a driveway. And I said, like, hey, like, I know there's back due on it, but it's been off the road. Like, this is like it. Like, we've got the sign pop, and they still told me to kick rocks. They're like, no, you bought it. You knew I had back due on it. I'm like, yeah, I did, because I can't lie. I'm dumb. And so yeah, it didn't work out. But
well, it was like the time I told you I went out to check. I don't know if you remember the story. I went out to check out a Dodge Neon Sport, which has the 2-liter dual overhead cam, and it's like just a stripped down Neon. It's not that special, but this one had like low mileage, super clean, dude, like so clean. And we get
that's right.
there,
You said the interior was like perfect, right?
like 10 out of 10. And they get there, the guy's like, yeah. I'm like, can I see the title? He's like, oh yeah, just got it in the mail today. He opens the envelope in front of me and like pulls it out really quick. And the first thing you see is that little box that has the status of the title. I see salvage. And this is a clean title car. And he opens it real quick. Yeah. He's like, yeah. I'm like, what about that? The salvage. And he's like, yeah, I didn't know. And I'm like, wow, game over, my friend. And I'm like, will you take half of what you wanted? And he's like, nope. And I'm like, well, that's not going to work for me.
Yeah.
So
have a nice day.
Yeah, so like unfortunately there's situations like that where he said up and down, clean title, clean title. So something happened in between when he had that clean title and opened that envelope right in front of me, and my heart broke because that was one where I drove 2.5 hours to go see.
Yep.
But admin stuff, man. Do your legwork ahead of time as much as you can with the Carfax, exhaust all the options, and then go there and like make sure the deal's legit.
Yep.
You know what's more fun than, well, I guess buying cars is actually more fun. You know what's actually not as fun? Selling
cars.
Oh, boy.
Oh
Frank,
boy.
man. Take us. You got a good tip right off the rip for tip off the rip for selling?
Don't rip off the tip. I'll tell you that much. And I guess I don't know, unless you'd like are a moil. I don't know. A single like elevator pitch.
Just one
selling
specific
a car. One snippet. And that wasn't another Moyle reference.
It was.
I would go. How about this?
He's deep.
How about this? Whenever you have an opportunity to, just sell to a good, what you can best as you can tell, just a good person.
I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Depending on how you're selling the car, sometimes you can pick who you're selling it to, sometimes you can't. But if you're doing like a traditional Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, whatever, you can kind of get a sense. A lot of times, like, how often do you get like immediate like on this Mazda I just sold for my in-laws, where I got somebody reached out immediately with like, and I had it at like 3,400 initially was the asking, which is too much money, but
sure,
fine. Let people beat me up. I'll take $2,500 or something. And it was like immediate, like 2,000 cash, and that's all it said. I'm like, nah. I'd really, 25. I would do 2,500, but that's kind of what I gotta get out of it. It's not my car. It's not my call. But if you want to do this, like, we can come on out, and then just like no response for a day, and then be like, 1,800 cash, and then just a picture of money. I'm like, dude, you're negotiating the wrong way. Like this isn't gonna work. And then like they get salty or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, like there's a lot of people that will just try and grind you, but then there'll be some good people. You talk to them like, oh yeah, like I need this car for this, and is it good for that, and da 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 da, and you can kind of get a sense. And
Yeah,
I'd rather sell a car for a couple $100 less to someone who's not a pain in the ass. And because guess what, if that guy, what would have happened if that guy just said, oh, yeah, 2,500 cash, I'm gonna come get it. He shows up and, well, actually, you've got 1,800, and
yeah.
oh, I didn't know there was this crack in the windshield that you described in the listing, and they're just trying to get in the door, and oh, I've got a sale pending. Oh, I'm on my, I'll give you more money right now, and
Right.
they won't. They will come down and they'll end up trying to wave less money in your face. It just, you don't have the time for that. You don't burn yourself out. Like if you can find a good human, have a conversation with them, and they seem like an actual human being, I don't know. I think I'll take a 10% haircut and sell it to someone who's a human. Or if it's an enthusiast car, an enthusiast, someone who knows about the car, who cares about it. They want to put money in, they want to get it back on the road. They want to do whatever. They want to carry the torch. I'll do that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like you can be picky, especially an enthusiast vehicle like we usually traffic in. I think that can bring out some very good people. And that's always a good conversation. And, you meet some very cool people doing this kind of stuff. And much along that line is, dude, as a seller, just be transparent. Just be like,
yeah,
honestly, like my biggest thing to walk away with is be honest. I put my rep on when I sell a car, I link videos that I shoot about the car. Cause I put this effort into this build and I have a review you can see, and I got my name associated with that. I'm not going to put a piece of shit out there that has like a bunch of, duct tape, zip tie action going on. It's just not how I operate. But also you don't want to push that stuff onto someone else. Cause if you're like me and obviously also like Frank, we move a lot of cars and we don't want to have the reputation of selling like really shitty stuff.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if you sold something and they got like, I don't know, 15 miles down the road and the turbo exploded or something like that. Like that would be terrible.
Like after you shot a review of you doing like 20 quarter-mile pulls.
To be fair though, isn't like, just look at like that hole with the Galant, right? Like, I'm definitely kidding here, but what a great thing that you sold that thing to me, and not somebody else, right? Like
true
for like every like for the good of the car, for the good of your
the friends and family rate also applies to some of these concerns.
Yeah, that's true.
You're like, what if you would have sold to someone else? I'm like, well, I'd have a little more money in my pocket and have a different conversation.
Maybe, or they would have then taken it to some shitty mechanic who would have been like, oh, it needs a bottom end and this is going to cost $4,000 and I'm taking you to court, and it would have been a mess for like that. And to your point, like if you can do everything you can to make sure a car is tight and mechanically sound, and then you can illustrate that, and then it goes to that next person, that they're not going to immediately like, oh, well, my cousin looked at it and then he had me take it to my mechanic and I just bought this car and they're saying it's got all these problems and you sold me like, it's just like, right, there might be one minor thing wrong with it, but it's out of your hands and it's out of your control.
100%. Yeah. But transparency would be like if I sold that car to you and said, oh yeah, it's got a fully rebuilt turbo in it, and it was the 150,000 mile original turbo still in there. That's the kind of stuff. Like, don't be that
that'll
guy.
Bite you. Yeah.
Don't do that. Because when they open that up, when they go to replace it, they're gonna see it's not a rebuilt, turbo. Yeah. And that's the kind of stuff I'm really talking about. I bought probably innumerable amount of cars that were great. When my test drove them on my way home, I experienced some kind of issue, whether a check engine light pops up or I fill up my Escort GT and gasoline starts coming through the back seat cushion. There's all these things, and I don't, I can't get upset because, I inspected the car and stuff's going to go wrong like any older car. But what I'm saying is like the straight up, like the people that lie.
Deception.
Right? Yeah. Like, oh, I replaced that, that timing belts were replaced, and you look and like the serpentine
it's like the accessory belt that they replaced. Yeah.
Yeah. They're like 40 years old. I'm like, wow, slap those bad boys on. I hear you. But that's the kind of stuff I mean, and I would never sell anything with a Band-Aid. Like I'd never do something like, inch it through smog and like it's like I'm like, you can drive
catch
it.
a clean.
Yeah, you can drive it for 2 miles. That check engine light's gonna come on. I'm not gonna tell you. We're only doing a test drive for one. But yeah, just be transparent. Just represent the car fairly, what it is. Don't try to church it up.
You ever see the like the semi-viral like series of videos where like it was the guy just like filling in a whatever, oh, there's a big chip taken out of this wooden desk and like filling it in with ramen and like epoxy and like sanding it down
So
and painting it
bad,
over.
dude.
I just imagine doing that like on like a rusty frame on like a Toyota 4Runner, just like filling it with ramen and like black spray paint.
Just as bad things happen, it's really sad.
And there are a lot of people that pull that nonsense, and that, I mean, let's face it, that's a huge reason why. That's at least 50% of the reason why the term used car salesman has a deeply negative connotation.
Right.
Because of people not being transparent and trying to be shitty, when you kind of don't have to be.
You don't. You really don't. Yeah.
And that's part of that outs I was talking about, right? Like if you buy a secondhand car, an interesting car to play with, and you leave yourself a bunch of outs for some question marks, and it turns out you don't need them, and you bought the car just really well now, and you go to sell it, like you'll do okay, even if you have to fix stuff, or even if you have to disclose a bunch of stuff that you find was wrong. If you bought it right on the front end, you'll probably at least get your money back on the other end after you've had some fun with it. And you'll be fine. And you don't have to try and polish up a turd.
Yeah.
Right. You can be honest, and people will pick up on that too. There's been so many times where it's like, hey, like, oh, by the way, like I know I put in the ad, there was one thing I forgot to list. Let me point it out to you. It turns out there's a crack in the tail light. I forgot people really appreciate that. And they're more apt to give you the money that you're asking for or closer to it, because you're honest and straightforward, versus you'd be like, oh no, there's nothing wrong with it.
Perfect.
This is great. It's perfect. And it's like shitting the bed actively in front of them.
Yeah. I can find paint defects on a brand new vehicle on a dealer lot. I mean, let's be honest, there's going to be issues, but dude, one more thing, speaking about clean and polishing, dude, clean your damn car up when you're selling it. There's nothing like that lets me know that this thing's behind on important maintenance than the fact that you can't even move garbage out of your car when I'm coming to look at it. So when you sell a car, present the car as you want it to look. I mean, I think a clean, well-sorted car looks a certain way. I think if you go there and there's like food in the car or tons of change everywhere and everything's nasty to touch and the exterior is like hasn't been cleaned in probably 6 months, you're selling this car. What do you
it makes it makes such a difference. I've seen cars that were like clean but just like deeply used, right? Like this they're staining in the seats and in the carpet, and like there's just like handprints on the inside of the quarter glass, and there's haze in the clear coat, and the rims are dirty and things like that. And maybe you took it to the drive-through car wash, so it's cleanish, and maybe you got the garbage out of it. But you just get like a low level detail done, and I've seen cars that have it's doubled the perceived value,
of course,
just by getting it cleaned up. And I tell this to people a lot. It's just like, hey, you gonna go to a job interview? Do you consider showering beforehand and brushing your teeth?
Fuck no.
And putting on clean clothing, right? And perhaps putting on deodorant.
Yeah.
Or do you just show up with like, I don't know, like just absolutely scummy and just like a used rubber in your hair and just wearing just like mustard stained beater, like,
dude, that interview is
to get the job.
That interview is a war of attrition. I'm going to force them to hire me based on.
I don't know. There's something about that guy. It just really stood out. He just seemed different, He stood out from the crowd.
Yeah, the whole I don't give a shit attitude, and I'm going to get it done no matter what.
What was that? On Dumb and Dumber, it's just like, tell her I've got a rapist wit. It's just like similar. So he's got this disgusting rapey vibe. Just like, it's not where you want to be in a job interview, and it's not. This is your car's job interview. Like, give it a bath, clean it up a little bit. Like
twofold on the cleaning. Here's the scary side of the cleaning. You go to look at a car and it's really, really dirty. Guess what? You're not catching the quality of the paint. And I've been surprised a couple times taking a car home, and even like I don't like personally, even when I check out a car, if I'm serious about buying it, I'll do a clean swipe if it's super dirty, just to spot check. You won't find everything, but dude, there's some really scary stuff. There's like key marks you didn't see before. There's, all kinds of paint oxidation. There can be all kinds of issues. You got to be aware of that. When you go buy a car, if it's covered in that dirt and dust where you can't see shit, it's on you, my friend. It's like buying in the rain. Like I would rather buy a car at night.
Buy in the rain at night.
Yeah, I'd rather buy at night versus rain, to tell you the truth. Because rain, everything looks fucking perfect. Every car looks so good when it's glistening wet versus
that. And you don't want to stand out in it to like really look it over. Like you're just in this position of being like uncomfortable and wanting to get it done and be like, all right, fine, let's go. And it's
that too, big time. But dirty car. You got to ask yourself what, they really don't care. But if they're selling you a story, oh, I love this car. It's been in our family forever. I couldn't even just hose it off for you. But then like, you got to be understanding. And I'll tell you what, you get into some money if you're having to correct paint or get a repaint or anything like that. That adds up quicker than anything else. So just be aware.
Be aware.
Be aware.
How about this? Stick your head under the damn thing.
Yeah.
And not as much here, right? Because of rust for when it's here. I mean, if you're here in California, you stick your head under it and you're seeing rust, you're running. Like that's just whatever. And it's probably unfair because there's a lot of very good cars that we're just absolute babies about corrosion about. That could be totally reasonably decent cars. But like, you know how many times I look under and go like, oh, like this like underside of this rocker and this whole pinch weld is crushed flat because somebody hopped a median or something like that. Or the exhaust is like almost torn, it's crushed so bad,
dude. Yeah.
Or it's just like there's transmission fluid blown down the whole underside of the car because something is leaking. That's where you see your
leaks. That's where you see your leaks, right?
Yeah. And how about this too? Use your sniffer. Lots of times you drive a car and you get out and you can just smell there's a couple of things. Like you can smell burning transmission fluid. It smells different. You can smell oil. You can smell coolant for sure, right? Yes. You drive around like, I think the heater core is going because you smell it inside. You got that slight dampness on the interior.
Yep.
Or even like you can tell a car's been sitting a long time. Like you drive it around, you get it hot, and you kind of put it through space a little bit, and you come back, and it's got a certain burning off of oldness smell to it, which could be okay depending on what it is. Like if the car has not been driven a lot lately, like the story lines up. But if you're like, oh no, like I drive this thing all the time, and you're like, dude, this thing's been sitting, or they're like the incorrect battery is in it. And you're like, they just toss some random ass battery in here to like get it going, like that, But yeah, look underneath and smell. Smells are important.
Smells are a real good one. And when you're selling, and don't go sell your smelly car. How about that? Rule number 1. How about market research when you go to sell? You don't want to list your car, even though you care about it. You have the sentimental attachment to the specific car. Don't list too high because you're going to deter a lot of buyers from even checking your ad out. Whereas if you price it at the right market price, you're going to get way more attention. And of course, this varies. What's your scenario? Do you need to unload a car quick? Can you hold on to it a little while? Can you entertain multiple offers coming in? Because as you know, Frank, very well, is you got to have the right buyer in the room. The right buyer's got to lay their eyes on your ad or you're never going to get them. And sometimes it just takes time. It just has to align. Not everybody's on marketplace like us every 5 minutes.
Right.
But make sure you're priced correctly. Too low sends a very bad message as well, because everybody's assuming there is something wrong with this car. Even if you come up with the best, I got to get out of here. I need it sold this weekend, and the car's been listed for 3 months. Those are the ones you avoid. But just like do your market research before you sell your car. Look at the mileage, the condition, obviously the car, if it's a special trim or something like that. Do your research, guys, because those are 2 big red flags.
Do your own research.
Yeah, when you're going to sell your car, that's 2 red flags. You can go too high, too low. Be smart about it.
You know what's funny there too is when you're like on Facebook Marketplace and you see the one where it was like $20,000 like marked down to like $6,200. You're like, like, yeah, and it's been on the market for 7 weeks. And you're like, why?
Someone test drove and a major component fell off.
Or they're just like people, and it doesn't work in this, right? It's not like when you go to Walmart and it's like, oh my God, this thing was like $300 new and now it's marked down to 120. It's like, it doesn't work that way.
Suggested retail price is what you're talking about. Yeah, suggested retail price.
And so if you're selling it,
don't value.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so don't overprice it and then mark it down. Like you can do that a little bit and that's fine, but like, just my rule of thumb is list something. If I want to like mentally take 20% under that, like probably okay, but like that's probably about the limit.
Yeah,
and to an extent, right? If that's like a sub $10,000 car, like nobody's going to put $100,000 car and take 80, but
no.
Yeah, and just have some wiggle room, price it a little bit higher, be comfortable to come down a reasonable amount. And if somebody wants to come by and just offer you under where you want to be, if it's a lot, tell them to kick rocks. If you're comfortable with it, just take it. And if you feel like it's a good home for the car, if you feel like it's going to be not a hassle, they're handing you cash, they're going to drive off and you're never going to hear from them again, and there's value there, cool.
That's it, Frank. That's exactly it's called your reservation price in the negotiation world. Know exactly like what you're willing to take on your vehicle.
Mental reserve.
Yeah. That's your reservation price. It's the lowest price you'll take. And have that going in there. Don't try to do that math on the spot, because you could drastically fuck yourself over by just giving in or holding out too hard for something that you probably could let slide a little. So you know your own financial background. That's something that's hard for someone else. But when you're going to sell, have that number already there, right?
And also too is, have those numbers there. Never, almost never. I've done it once.
Don't do it.
And it worked out in my favor, but never do as I say, not as I do. Don't take a partial or a full trade on something. If somebody's got something and they're looking to trade it for you, unless your car is like, the one time I did it was my first Galant VR4.
Yeah.
With a wasted timing belt and bent valves. And I traded it for a running, driving Eddie Bauer Ford Bronco. So in that instance, it was like this other person was taking almost all the risk. And so that's a pretty uncommon example. But if you're selling a running, driving car and somebody is just like, oh, I'll trade you this, or I'll trade you this plus cash, unless you really know what you're doing and it's a really hard to come by thing they're trading you, you're almost certainly taking on a bevy of problems. That's why this exchange is happening.
Yep.
That is why. In my instance, I was giving the bevy of problems to somebody else. and that was they were originally going to trade me both that Bronco and a factory yellow wide body Starion.
Holy shit.
And I said, yes, I will take that trade. And then they changed their mind. They're like, oh, actually, I meant either or. And I was like, man. And the Starion needed a little bit of work. It wasn't like daily drivable. I need something I can drive. I can't trade a non-running car for a barely running car. This isn't gonna. So I took the Bronco, sadly. But the Starion would have been dope. It was yellow over black.
Oh, dude, that's a cool.
Starion ESIR. Yeah. Oh well. Yeah. But yeah, don't trade. Don't trade for like an Xbox and a dirt bike and 8 ounces of sativa. Like, just don't do that. Like,
or do it and let us know how it worked out in your favor.
Hey, make trades every day.
So yeah, I mean, we're up against it on time. Let's just parting word for selling also is ensure you get payment before you release a vehicle, guys.
That's a good one.
Because as the seller, you are accepting all the risk. If someone comes to the house or your spot, hands you a cashier's check or what you think is a valid cashier's check, and they leave with your title signed over to them and your vehicle, boy, it's a tough scenario to have a piece of fake paper in your hand. Secure payment, make sure it's right. I prefer cash on almost all my dealings. Obviously depending on value of the vehicle, but dude, just be careful. There's a lot of bullshit out there. partial payments, any kind of weird payment things. Just do not do the title. Make sure the cash is good before you start the transaction.
Yeah, what I've done before on cashier's check, where someone's like, "Oh, well, like I'm not comfortable." Like if somebody's flying in or something, right?
Right.
And they're like, "Well, I'm not comfortable flying with 10 large in cash on me or something." It's like, okay, I get that.
We have
Or
banks,
there's whatever
you know,
reason. There's
we
some
have
reason
banks.
that their bank is like, "Hey, I can't do this." Okay. You want to get a cashier's check? That's fine. Send me a photo of the front and back of that cashier's check. Before you get here, I will use that. I will call your bank, X Joe Blow Credit Union, whatever it is. And more often than not, except for Wells Fargo, because they're a stain upon this earth and a scam artist.
Oh, I hate
But
Wells
most,
Fargo.
and Bank of America fought me on this too before, but most banks, they will have some sort of draft verification line, or just a general customer service number. You can say, "Hey, Bob Smith handed me this cashier's check number 77277, number 42069. Is this good?" And more often than not, you might have to jump through hoops. It's like, "Yep, that's valid. That is correct." And then you're good. It's good. It's a funded thing. You're not going to get scammed. I've definitely done that before, and it's not bitten me. But yeah, cash is king, or bank to bank wire transfer is king.
Yep.
That's kind of it.
Yeah,
Let it clear.
and there's a bank too. If someone's like adamant about not being able to get cash, there's always a bank. There can be something to be done.
Yeah.
Just be careful and don't be the guy. Don't deal with the guy in a rush that could only come up with the cashier's check. Like don't give in to what you're uncomfortable with, because like I said, at the end of the day, as the seller, you're the one taking the risk.
Don't do PayPal.
Once that
PayPal,
car
it's
is
very
gone,
easy to do a chargeback on PayPal.
Oh yeah,
Zelle you kind of can't, but PayPal you can. Venmo is clunky. You get like small amounts. You can't do a whole thing. If you're selling a car for $500, like, all right, you can maybe do Venmo, maybe, and don't pay people via Venmo or that shit too, because you can get scammed that way.
Yep.
So cash is king. If it's a transporter's getting it, you want to do a bank to bank wire transfer, an old school wire transfer. That stuff's good. Not Western Union, kick rocks. Unless it's a Nigerian prince.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We all hail royalty. But yeah, because once that vehicle drives off, guys, it's way too late. You might never see it again. You probably won't see it again. Let's be honest.
Hope you don't see it again, and hopefully the cash is good. Yeah.
Well, yeah. If they drive off with a fake cashier's check in your hand, you're really screwed. So, just be aware. But that's it, man. I hope this was useful for you guys. We do a lot of buying and selling, and we're not really professional, but we are experienced. I will go on the line of saying that Frank and myself do buy and sell quite a large volume of vehicles.
Too frequently.
We've been in the game for a while. So just, hopefully it's something, maybe you learned something new, maybe you didn't, but maybe you agree that these are good ideas for like special new buyers, sellers, and something to think about if you're expanding and you're going to start buying more vehicles. But cool, man. I wanted to cover that because it's very important to us. It's near and dear to our hearts. But are we ready to get quizzical?
Let's get quizzical.
I'm going to shut up the laptop of doom
I want to get quizzical.
Prepare myself. After Frank wins the voice on this week's episode, he's going to go ahead, dredge up a horrible car ad. This is a printed car ad from the 80s, 90s, mid 2000s. He's going to read it upon me today and omit anything that clearly gives it away. I have 3 guesses to come to the make and model, trim, year. Those are kind of bonus categories. If I miss any of my guesses, I can ask for a hint or he can supply a hint. And I have 10 minutes on the clock once he finishes the ad. We're going for record time here. Frank, I'm ready. Go ahead and lay it on me.
Oh, kidoki. We have a 2-pager. It is our favorite front quarter driver side image. At a little bit of an angle. And it's definitely in motion. We've got the headlights on.
Dutch angle in motion. Got it.
Exactly. Yeah. Very battlefield earthy here. And it has it's the picture is most of the page with the text over some of it. Like there's some grass in the foreground.
Okay.
And it says blank, the sports sedan that puts the road in your hip pockets without turning them inside out.
It's affordable.
Sure.
Got it.
It's yeah.
I got it. I picked up on that.
It puts the road in your hip pockets. Sure. Unlike some, we do not measure a sports sedan's performance capabilities by the number of figures to the right of the dollar sign. Hence, new blank. It has a drag coefficient of 0.33, Sleek enough to beat the Porsche 928S in the wind tunnel. But since you probably don't often drive in a wind tunnel, Blank also offers an optional 2.8 liter aluminum head, 130 horsepower, multi port fuel injected V6. Just in case you're interested in power, obviously we are. It has a GetTrag licensed manual 5-speed that's as quick as any hairpin you're likely to encounter. And it has rear trailing arm suspension to leave tight curves asking what just went by. Which leaves only the price. And while Blank takes great pride in matching or exceeding certain other sport sedans in many areas, that of price isn't one of them. Then it's got a couple little bullets on the side. Drag coefficient of 0.33, which we already know. Mm-hmm. Available 2.8 liter multi-port fuel injected V6 with 5-speed. We did cover that already as well. Most passenger room of any compact sedan in America. Available F41 sport suspension and a 6-year, 60,000 mile powertrain warranty. That's the ad, my friend.
This is going to be interesting.
It is interesting. There's some good meat to chew on. There's not a ton.
Do you have a stopwatch at the ready, my friend, to put 10 up for me? Yes, I think I'm going to be needing a little more time than usual on this one.
Okay. All right.
Screams at me in 90s GM. 2.8 liter multi-port fuel injection was what GM called their V6s, which were definitely not dual overhead cams like that GT Pontiac Grand Prix we had the other day. Yep. Small sports sedan.
Compact is what it called itself. Compact sports sedan. America's compact sports sedan. Or sorry, most passenger room of any compact sports sedan in America.
Sports sedan is the stretch here, guys.
Come on, the 2.8 doesn't have incredible sporting chops.
That thing was in everything. That thing was in the Suzu Trooper. Which car can this be? There's so many cars that fit this. That's the problem, right? Like this is, it's a sedan, so it's going to rule out the Beretta, the 2-door version of these cars. But that 2.8 could be had in, like I said, could be in could be an Illumina, could be in any of those cars. Good Lord. I was gonna go Fiero. I wanted to get exciting, but this is not a Fiero. Boy, dude, this is gonna be like, I just have to kind of start like hit it right and like just slim it down because there's not enough defining stuff here because they made a lot of sedans during the 90s, early 90s. This one.
Do you want just yeah?
Because it's like it's gonna be.
I didn't describe the color of the vehicle, which normally I do. Maybe it won't help. Maybe it will help. Maybe it won't. It's like a gunmetal gray.
Okay. No, doesn't help. God, they had so many 2.8 powered small sedans. Well, I mean, the Cavalier. So the Cavalier would be one, but I think you only got the 2.8 in the Z24 package, and it would have touted way. And I know these shit boxes too well, dude.
You could only get a Z24 in a coupe, right?
Ooh.
Could you not get that? Could you not get the Z24?
You could get a convertible. You could get a convertible,
right? Convertible and coupe. I don't think you can get. I don't think you get a Cavalier Z24 sedan.
I think you could later, not in the early ones though.
Okay. Which wouldn't have the 2.8.
Which
the later ones.
Not. So we're dealing with. It's got to be. This has to be. It wasn't. There was the small Caprice. Do you remember that one? Not the big old school Caprice. There was that guy. And then there's the. This is not a Pontiac. I mean, no, because the Grand Am's never got the 2.8, which was weird that they didn't stick those in there. Boy, am I my first car could be this Corsica. I had the 2.2. I didn't have the 2.8 because I was poor. I had a condition called the poor.
The poor.
When I got my first car,
Big poor energy.
That was a 1990 Chevy Corsica with a 2.2 putting out 92 horsepower. I remember these facts. Is this a 2.8? In the 2.8, they had a special edition that you could get the GT. What was it? The how am I blanking on this? Because they had a Beretta GTZ. I think GTZ. I could be wrong. I'm fucking up my shit box here.
I think there was a Beretta GTZ.
And they made a Corsica one, and I don't know if it had the 2.8 or a different engine. But this could totally be a Corsica, but it also could be any of the other myriad of fuck. Yeah, let's go for it. First car alert. Let's go 1990 Chevy Corsica LT is the trim. I think that has the 2.8. Final answer.
Corsica, the sports sedan that puts the road in your hip pockets without turning them inside out.
Dude, was I right? Was it? It had to be the LT. The LT.
You know what? It doesn't. It actually, this ad doesn't mention the year, nor does it mention trim level.
Is there an ad? Is the ad like have a copyright at the bottom with the year?
Oh, you know what? This says the ad. What's funny is it's an Etsy, like you can purchase, like somebody tore it out of a magazine.
Oh,
and the ad for the ad calls it a 1988 Chevrolet Corsica.
Okay.
Sports sedan. It does say, what I was going to double down on was, like, if you got really lost at sea, was the available F41 suspension package, which sport suspension, which really just screams Chevrolet specifically.
100%. That was the last. Not as much as multi-port fuel injection, though.
Right. Yeah, that's why it was. But that's GM. Like, multi-port, like, all of it was GM. I think the F41 package narrows it down more to Chevrolet than anything else.
We could talk in a whole podcast episode about 2.8 GM powered vehicles. All right, let's see what you sent me here.
Yeah, that was not a terribly good
so mine was teal, my 2.2.
Yeah.
Okay, this one is definitely nicer looking than mine.
Yeah, that's that gunmetal gray with like the black belt line and the red pinstriping and the red outline around the bow tie in Corsica.
It's hard to see. It looks like it says it has the engine displacement on it in the red right there.
Yeah, the 2.8 MPFI.
Yep. And then
the tiny MP and then FI.
There was, God, I want to say GTZ was a very rare one, and you could get it with the V6 and a manual, which was super cool.
Yeah, that's what this is. But like, I don't know if it's the
GTZ
say trim. Yeah, it doesn't say trim level.
Nah, I can't read. Guys.
You think there was ever been a Chevrolet Corsica owned by someone living in Corsica, like the city in France?
Absolutely not. It doesn't say, dude. It doesn't have like the LT. Oh, you'd have to see the rear deck lid.
So 1980, according to the Wikipedia machine, L body. There was a base model, and then there was you can get an LT or LTZ. So
the LTZ
was a performance package, including many suspension parts from the Beretta.
Yep.
And a rare XT trim included all the performance parts from the LTZ trim, as well as leather interior, special body kit, and spoiler package. Designed for GM by a third-party supplier, which GM is just a collection of third-party suppliers. So I don't know.
At this time,
I don't know if they're getting that. But apparently you can get the 3.1 in the Corsica, which is like, I don't know, big dick things. That looks like that came out in 93. You can get
later. Yep.
The 3.1 multi-port, which is kind of a garbage can of a motor. But it got you 160 horsepower.
Give me a quad 4 with 180, please.
You know how many they sold Corsica sedans they sold in 91?
A shit ton.
291,000.
Look, it's insane.
Yeah, that's not F-150 ish, but that's a lot of Corsicas.
Yeah,
and
if GM
7 of them are left.
If GM moved a passenger car like there, it'd be a big deal. Because that's a lot. That's a lot of volume.
Yeah, that's pushing weight.
I think I had it narrowed down because once we talked about compact sports sedan, I think that's the only one of those that fits the bill. Because the other ones were a little big. Like the Lumina was a mid-size, I believe, and then
Right. The Lumina was a mid-size, although it was like mid-size minus.
yeah. Well, today they'd be
Yeah,
compact,
they'd
right?
be compact.
Modern compact.
And then they had the Lumina, and then if you were going earlier, you had what, the Chevy Celebrity, right? But was that I think that was a mid-size as well.
Same, yeah, yeah, a little bigger. The Corsica was kind of small for what it was. It wasn't like it wasn't
Yeah.
It was a step above the Cavalier size wise because you could eventually get Cavaliers with sedan size.
Yeah, probably the earlier one to this, if it wasn't, because if the Celebrity was the mid-size, was probably the Citation,
Oh,
the X body, that X
yeah,
body car, which was a dumpster. But it came, I think you can get that with the two, you can get it with the Iron Duke, but I think you can get that with the 2.8 as well.
yeah, everything.
Probably just like throttle body injected, probably not multi-port,
Yeah, you know
but just
what?
TBI.
I like to laugh, but that car was goddamn bulletproof. They're built.
The
They're pretty.
Corsica.
Yeah, they're pretty simple, and it's a pretty robust car. I had that too, which was like so understressed. You know, got good fuel economy.
Mm-hmm.
Just like a great first car, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, what's funny is just like I always like laughed at just like you pop the hood and just like look at stuff like the way the inner structure was, like the upper tie bar, just like box form
Mm-hmm.
sheet metal, and just like I don't know, it just seemed like a dearth of engineering in a lot of ways, which is probably why some of them were
Simple.
it kept them inexpensive, and it kept them simple, and those motors were pretty easy to keep going.
You can't find a good Corsica nowadays. Like you literally trust
How
me.
many times do you think that sentence has been? Anymore, you just can't find a good Chevrolet Corsica anymore.
I would buy
let
it
alone
out.
an XT trim.
Or I'd buy a GTZ in a heartbeat. Yeah, with a manual. Yeah.
Yeah, what was the what year was the Malibu reintroduced? Was that like 97 or something?
No, it had to be like 99, 98. Because it was basically the Grand Am, wasn't it? This shared the exact same chassis.
Yeah, I think it was the Grand Am, and then like
The Oldsmobile Alero.
the Achieva, maybe.
Was it the Achieva that late? I thought it was
Maybe
the
the
Alero by that
Achieva.
point.
Ooh, I think the Alero was a little
Oh, those
later.
Malibus ran for a while, buddy. With the Chevy badge
No,
with
they did.
the wave in it.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah,
bad.
the classic that you can get. Yeah. Did
They
it
had
win
the
like
same
car of the year or something?
I think they did. They had the same Grand Am powertrain and drivetrain and everything was
Let's
the
look it
same.
up.
Yeah. I want to say 90.
Fifth
God, I'm gonna go.
generation.
You ready for this?
Yeah.
98. I want to say 99 though.
A new
99.
front-wheel drive Malibu was introduced for the 1997 model year
Okay.
on an extended wheelbase version of the GM N platform, shared with the
Grand Am.
Pontiac Grand Am, Oldsmobile Achieva, and we forgot one, the Buick Skylark.
Skylark. Ah, yes.
Yep. That was the N body.
Yep.
Yep. And then they had let's see, how many of those? So you can get a 2.4, or you can get the old 3.1. Malibu was Motor Trend Magazine's Car of the Year for 1997. This was later criticized by Car and Driver in 2009. Yeah, well, that's not a good car.
Did you remember this was my first car, the Corsica?
I did remember it was your first car. That's why I was just like, yeah, you know what? Maybe he'll have a puncher's chance here.
How did I miss the Corsica when I was naming all those other piece of shit 2.8 powered cars?
You figured it out on your first guess.
You know what? Thanks, man. You know what it was? Is because mine was the 2.2, and I default to that being the best thing.
That's it.
Clearly,
That's it. The 2.2. Speaking of, I don't know where to go from there. I have made effectively zero progress. I am not good at things. This is why I need to own fewer cars, is really what it's boiling down to. Because I don't have the time to do like one car, let alone 10. So this is things that gotta change, my friend.
Yeah, dude, you gotta like, and it's been hard for me too. I try to carve out that little bit each week. I can go in the garage for like an hour and do a little work. You just got to make the time, because if not, it gets scary, man. These projects just sit and they don't fix
Yeah.
themselves, which is
No, and
highly
they
unfortunate.
atrophy.
Yeah, they
Like
do.
this car behind me that again suddenly just developed a no start condition. So yeah, that's a thing. But yeah, I've made no progress. Has time marched on? Have you made some progress? Have you?
Slow, and it's all in the name of getting this Acura TSX ready for daily duty.
Right.
So a cosmetic thing. Well, cosmetics matter. The wheels on this Acura were completely. Alloy wheels, especially aluminum wheels, you drive them so much that brake dust, if you don't clean them off regularly, it really burns
It
into
etches
the,
in.
the
Yeah.
clear coat. Yeah, and it's a nightmare. And eventually it becomes so ingrained in there. There's two options: sanding and refinishing, or one of my secret things, and I don't usually share my tech. No, I always share my techniques. A brass brush. If you are very careful and you test in an inconspicuous area, sometimes if it's a good enough wheel, because some wheels obviously coated better than others, you
Right.
can take those imperfections out with a brass brush and not dull the finish. And
Nice.
the trade-off for that, Frank, is spending 2 hours.
No time.
2 hours of doing this for all your wheels. So I did it. Started with a deep clean, saw the actual where the damage was, inconspicuous test, and then went and did all those little grooves. It's always right in the freaking grooves. Got it out, got them looking good. And then the other thing is curb rash. I've got another secret for that too. So curb rash, pretty rough. When it's that bad, like saw blade edge curb rash, I take a Dremel tool, I get a sanding bit on there, and just very carefully just make it nice and smooth. It's an optical illusion at this point, guys. And then I get some good quality wheel spray, blend it in. I sent you
There
the
you go.
photo. They look great. They look great up close. We're not going for like concourse for a daily driver, high
Right.
mileage, accurate TSX here, but God, they look so much better, dude. And like
Yeah.
wheels pop, dude. Wheels
They
pop on
really
a
do.
car,
With some fresh
especially
tires on there too. Yeah.
yeah, brand new tires, and it's a black, shiny black car, nice like aluminum colored wheels. It's worth every. It wasn't even expensive. I didn't buy
Look at
anything to do
this.
this job.
Look at this junior executive over here.
It is a junior exec. I don't know. I love it. I already love the
Yeah.
car, and I haven't even driven it. I drove it once. It's just little things like that go a long way. I think when you're and that's like part of my series is you don't have to spend a lot of money. There didn't require any special tooling or anything like that to make your car nice and like fix things yourself. So that's my PCP for the week, man. My project car progress, fixing some wheels. It was time intensive, but huge payoff in my opinion.
Man, maybe maybe I got to get that done here
Am I
soon.
starting to put
I got
the
to
little
get some.
fire? You got to put the fire in yourself.
That's what I need. I need it.
It's so
I
easy,
just have
especially, dude, with the weather it is right now, going in a cold garage and doing work. It's like, it's hard, but like you just give yourself an hour and tell yourself what you're going to do and stay focused on that and just knock that thing off. And once you start, I make checklists and check off boxes. It feels so good, dude, in your soul.
What about, hear me out, cocaine?
Yes. I haven't worked on a car without it in decades, so I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely, dude. Just tweaker repairs. So okay, so we figured it out. I'm going to become a steadfast cocaine addict. And you, dear listener at home, thanks for listening and watching my spiral into hard drug abuse here on the podcast. If you're only listening, brilliant. Keep doing what you're doing. If you want to watch the madness that is me doing lines for the sake of productivity, you can do that too. And you can watch my septum slowly deviate as we continue to record this, and you can watch along on YouTube. Although maybe that would get us kicked off of YouTube if I think it
erodes. I think it erodes your septum more than deviates it. In the case of serious use. But if you want to support Frank's habit, and we don't usually talk this openly about it, but if you want to support Frank's habit, go ahead and actually rate the show. Like, let's get some traffic in and pull that traffic in. We start getting some big fat sponsors. Frank's
come for the cars, get done. Stay for the blow.
He doesn't sleep. The material will get a little more interesting, I'm sure. But yeah, like just like you said, man, like, dude, thanks for stopping. Check us out. Review the podcast and listen wherever you can. You have car friends that are into kind of weird car stuff and the stuff we talk about. Spread the word. Wow, we appreciate that. We're like very grassroots marketing at this point. So
I know.
If you want to tell a friend about us, we greatly appreciate that. And yeah, check us out in all the places. Instagram, man, we need to start using that platform.
We should.
To some kind of effectiveness. But Frank, you do a lot of great work, a lot of fantastic photography. And if the good people want to follow your personal endeavors, this is true. He's on coke. He's not answering correctly. Trust me on this one, guys. Frank, where can the good folks check you out?
They shouldn't. Hold on. Ugh, man, they shouldn't. But if they want to,
it's a white
watch
Christmas in the Harrington household.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. The 924 behind me is actually red. It's just completely sheathed in a layer of Colombian marching powder, and so if you want to witness my slow drift into cocaine fueled insanity, you can see that transpire. That's at the Photographer's Garage on Instagram and a little bit on YouTube. Chadwick, where can people watch you? I don't know, discuss my collapse into madness.
Yeah, we'll try to bring him back, guys. But that's not the kind of rescue I'm into. I'm into rescuing these turd boxes. Auto Obsessive Garage for your rescues, restorations, and reviews. And what would be awesome, guys? Staying on point today. Let's get a Corsica in the garage sometime here. I'd love to bring back a Corsica. That would be very sentimental.
Swap it.
How cool would that be?
Yeah. That would be great. We should have a pod Corsica, and that we will quad for swap in some sort of cocaine fueled spiral of shame. And one quick parting just popped into my head. Do you remember that like anti-meth commercial from back in the day with like the chick who was all methed out and like on her hands and knees, like scrubbing like the crack.
Was that the Not Even Once campaign? Or
I don't remember. I just remember she was like on her hands and knees, like all methed out, like scrubbing her bathroom with like a toothbrush.
I think that was an adult.
And it was like singing. It was like, ooh, meth. Yeah, meth. And it was trying to show like, it was like, look how glamorous it is. And I'm cleaning. Yeah,
I kind of brings back memories, but for me, like my memory of those videos is like, this is your brain on drugs with the egg in the pan, and then the woman starts swinging the pan everywhere.
Maybe I'll find the audio of it real quick and like splice it in. Splice it in here. Yeah, and you can maybe find the video. It's got to be out there in the ether somewhere.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
But on that note, goodbye, friends.
Bye, guys. Thanks for stopping by. As always, take care.
Cheers.